What's up, y'all? Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hello and welcome. We have finally made it to October 1st, which means spooky season has officially begun, and I thought what better way to kick off the season than with a ranking of all of the spooky palettes in my collection. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. As of now, I have 24 spooky palettes in my collection, but only 20 of them will be actually ranked. I will get to that in a minute, but I will have all these palettes listed down below in the description box, and they will be linked if they are available to do so. Some of these are discontinued and no longer available, so just kind of keep that in mind. I will also have everything that I am wearing on my face listed and linked down below in the description box as well. So per usual, if you're ever curious about anything I am wearing in any of my videos here on my channel, always check the description box. I squeeze as much information as I possibly can into that tiny little space. Now before we get into this, I do want to give a quick reminder that this video is just for fun, as are all of my palette rankings. So if your favorite palette is not my favorite palette, that's fine. It's not a big deal. It all comes down to my personal preferences and color story, formula, and how I like to do my makeup. But as always, feel free to leave how you would rank these palettes down below in the comment section. But let's go ahead and jump into this because, like I said, we've got 24 palettes to get through. Alright, so before we jump into this, I do want to give an honorable mention to 4 palettes that I have in my collection. I told y'all I had a grand total of 24, but only 20 would be ranked, and the reason is because these 4 palettes are very new in my collection, and I either haven't had a chance to use them at all, or I haven't had a chance to finish testing them, and I just didn't think it would be fair to rank them against other palettes that I am very familiar with. So with that being said, the first one that I have is going to come to us from Gourmande Girls. This is the Haunted palette. It was in collaboration with Doodles by the Bunny, and this one came out last year. I recently picked it up. It was on deep discount. I've had my eye on it for a long time, and this one is beautiful. It is actually pulled as a choice for my upcoming Throwback Thursday video, so we'll see if I get to play with it. I will at some point this month absolutely get to play with this palette and get very familiar with it, but I do love the color story in here. It is a very quintessential Halloween palette, and I'm excited to have it in my collection. The next one that I have comes to us from ColourPop. This is in collaboration with the Haunted Mansion. This is the Welcome Foolish Mortals palette. Again, this is another one that came out last year. I didn't get it on launch. It sold out way fast, and it never restocked until this year. So when they did restock it, I picked it up. This is a more boring color story. I realize that, but I do think it is very on theme. I think it captures the movie perfectly, and I love the Haunted Mansion. So there's a lot of nostalgia behind this one, but this is another one that is also pulled as a choice for my upcoming Throwback Thursday video as well. And once again, I absolutely will get around to playing with this one, even if it is not a winner. The next 2 that I have are very new. These are new releases from this year, and I have used them. I just haven't gotten to every single color yet. So the first one is going to be the Unearthly Cosmetics Gargoyle palette. This color story is so beautiful. It is a cool tone dream. I love the purples, the blues, the greens in here, these pop of neutrals. So far, I have really enjoyed it. Unearthly is a favorite brand of mine. They have a fantastic formula, and this one is no exception to that. But like I said, I haven't gotten to every single color, so I can't really rank it yet. And the last one is a very brand new palette to me. It is the one that I'm actually wearing on my eyes today, and it is the Gourmande Girls Calavera palette, once again in collaboration with Doodles by the Bunny for the beautiful artwork. And this is such a stunning, colorful palette. This one is a tribute to her grandparents and Dia de los Muertos for her Mexican heritage, and I think she absolutely nailed the color story in here. I have really enjoyed playing with this one. The quality is spectacular. The shimmers are beautiful. I just haven't gotten around to every single shade yet. Alright, let's go ahead and officially jump into this ranking. Now before I start it, I do want to preface this by saying that every single one of these palettes is excellent in quality. I don't have any issues with the performance of the mattes, the shimmers, anything across the board. This really just comes down to color story and my personal preferences. But coming in at number 20 is going to be the Blend Bunny Sickly Sweet palette. This is a beautiful palette. I do absolutely love it. I love how you can see like the skull in the cotton candy on the cover. This is a beautiful pastel palette, but that is the exact reason why it is coming in at number 20, because for me personally, this is not a Halloween color story. I understand what she was doing. I think it was executed perfectly. The quality in here is out of this world. Blend Bunny has a beautiful formula, and I do really like this one, but like I said, it's just, to me, in my mind, not a spooky season Halloween themed palette, so that's why it's coming in at number 20. At number 19, we have the Martine Cosmetics Mayday palette. Now, first of all, I love the packaging on here. It is a little on the chunky side, but it has this really cool, like, soft touch, almost like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's almost what you would think of if you were to touch a shark. I've never touched a shark before, but this is kind of what I imagine it would feel like. You have the gills on the side, but the line through it like a scratch to make the M. Very on point. I love the attention to detail with it. And then this is our beautiful color story. It does spell out Mayday in the middle, which I think is another very cute touch to here. And I love the color story. It is very on theme with all of these blues in here. You have a really pretty shimmery white, a black, these taupes over here, and a pop of red. Very on theme, very appropriate for what they were going for, and I completely get it. I love this palette. The quality in here is fantastic, but for me, once again, this is just not anything that comes to mind when I start thinking of eyeshadow looks to create for spooky season, Halloween, and all of that. This is something I'm going to reach for more in the winter month, and I did get a lot of use out of this more in like November, December, and January of this year, so I'm excited to play with it then. Fantastic palette, absolutely love it. It is still available. It's just not the perfect Halloween palette for me. Coming in at number 18 from Shroud Cosmetics in collaboration with Batty Bean, we have the It's Freakin' Bats palette. This is a beautiful color story. I do really enjoy it. I love the tones in here. I love the theming in here. These murky greens right here are so beautiful on the eye. I do really enjoy the looks that I create with this palette. Just for me, it's not a color story I reach for on its own. I like to bring this in as a companion, and honestly, just the rest of the color stories ahead of this one, I just tend to like more, and that's what it's going to come down to with a lot of these. So this is a beautiful palette. I don't really know what's going on with Shroud. I was able to look up this palette and the Halloween one and find that they are still available, but I've heard a lot of issues with the brand. I don't know if they've changed that. This is the only thing I've ever ordered from it, but it is still a beautiful palette. I do still really love it. I love Betty Jean. I enjoy watching her videos, and she nailed it with this one. Coming in at number 17 is the Ghostface Lives palette from Glamlite. Now, this is absolutely not my color story. I'm not a big fan of grays. We do have some really pretty taupes in here. I do like the blacks, and I do like the shimmers in here. The shimmers are absolutely beautiful, but honestly, I picked this palette up strictly based off of the theming. I love the Scream movies. It is one of my favorite horror movie franchise, so they got me with the nostalgia on this one. But this is a really good companion palette to some of the other palettes that you will see coming up, and the quality in here is still absolutely fantastic. So even though it's not a color story that I gravitate to on its own, I will still dip into this, pair it with other palettes, and definitely go into this for the shimmers because they are very unique, very beautiful, and I love the way that they look on the lid. Coming in at number 16, we have the Crazy in Love palette from Glamlite in collaboration with the Chucky franchise. This is a beautiful palette. Now, I do realize that this was sort of an anti-Valentine's Day release last year for the brand, but in my mind, it's a Child's Play theme palette, a horror theme palette. Therefore, it is a spooky theme palette, and that's kind of how I categorize it in my mind. This is such a beautiful color story. It is very dark, it is very deep, so that is where this palette comes into play. I need to bring in something else to kind of lighten this up for my fair skin tone, but I love the shade range in here. I love the color selection in here. The shimmers in here are not the best from the brand. They have definitely kind of stepped it up a notch, but it is still absolutely beautiful. I love the variety in here. This is such good quality as well from the brand. The mattes are stunning in this palette, and I do really enjoy it. Just like I said, this one is more of a companion palette for me. Number 15 is going to the Nomad Cosmetics Haunted Europe palette. This one was actually just featured in yesterday's eyeshadow palette ranking video. I do really enjoy this one. This one was a re-release from the brand, but it was not reformulated. So it is the same palette that they released a couple of years ago. I am just now finally getting my hands on it, and I'm so glad that I am because the color story in this one is absolutely beautiful. I don't have any issues performance-wise. The shimmers in here are a little bit more on the muted side, lackluster side. They're not bad or anything like that. They do look very pretty on the lid, but like I said in yesterday's video, they're just not quite as amped up as other shimmers that we have seen from the brand, but they are very pretty. I do like the color selection in here. This is such a beautiful palette, and I am so happy to finally have it in my collection. At the number 14 spot, we have the Vida and Muerte palettes from Melt Cosmetics. These are so beautiful. These came out several years ago at this point. I can't remember exactly when it was, but I do remember when these came out. These were very innovative, very different. We weren't seeing color stories like this on the market. I was still kind of very new into colorful makeup. I was still doing a lot of neutrals and things like that. So I picked these up. I was so incredibly excited, and these were kind of like my gateway into colorful makeup, but they are beautiful. I love the theming. I love how the two packages come together to create the one sugar skull. I think that is genius and so fun. Now, if I had to rank these separately, Vida would be my absolute favorite. I do think Muerte is beautiful. I love the color story in here. I love these darker colors, but this green shade down here is absolutely beautiful on the lid. The shimmers in here are okay. I do appreciate that we have sort of this champagne-y gold inner corner shade. It really helps to kind of lighten up my looks, but this isn't my favorite color story of the two just because it is very dark. But once again, these palettes are meant to be used together. So this one is pretty, but the other one is my favorite, and you will see why as soon as I open this one up. It is bright, it is fun, it is colorful. I love the reds, the oranges, and the greens. I could have done without the browns in here. I understand why they're in here, but I do wish we had like purples or something like that in here, but it is still very beautiful. This is one that I am more likely to reach for over this one, and the shimmers in this one I like better than the shimmers in the other one just because they are lighter and brighter, and that is a preference of mine. The formula in these palettes is really good. I feel like this is some of the best matte formulas that Melt has ever done. They're very hit or miss, and I've heard a lot of their palettes lately haven't been quite as good as what the brand used to be. I feel like they're kind of stuck in the past and they haven't really moved forward. Like they're always 2 steps behind everybody else. But regardless, I love these palettes. They hold a very special place in my heart. Unfortunately, you cannot get these anymore. I don't know if the brand is ever going to bring them back. I think they brought back one of these last year, and I want to say it was the Muerte palette. Maybe it was the Vida. I don't remember exactly which one it is, but I do love having these in my collection. They are favorites of mine. I just don't get as much use out of them anymore as I would like to, so I definitely need to pull these out for a Throwback Thursday. At the number 13 spot, we have the Nightmare on Elm Street palettes in collaboration with Glamlite. We have the Freddy Krueger one over here, and then we have the Dream Master palette. These are beautiful. I love the color stories. I love the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. My 3 favorite horror movie franchises are actually going to be Scream, Halloween, and A Nightmare on Elm Street. I remember watching A Nightmare on Elm Street as a kid with my brother, and it scared the you-know-what out of me. But now as an adult, I have more of an appreciation for it. It's very campy. It's very fun. I do absolutely love it, and these are fantastic. Like I said, the color stories are really good, the quality is wonderful, but if I had to rank these separately, my least favorite one of the two, I have to kind of read this, it's got the lenticular motion, is going to be the Dream Master palette. This is red, it does have the grays in here, the quality is fantastic, these are beautiful on the lid, but this one isn't my favorite of the two just because I wish I had a little bit more color variety in here. I can get an absolutely beautiful all red look, but I'm not a big fan of all red looks. I like to use red as more of an accent shade or something like that. So for that reason, that's why I would put this one a little bit lower. And my favorite of the two is going to be the Freddy Krueger palette. This one is grungy, it is green. I love the tones in here, and I love the setup of this palette. I love how you have the 6 mattes, the 6 shimmers, you've got light to dark. I do wish it went a little bit lighter. Like these 2 shades, I don't know if both of these were absolutely necessary. This one is a little bit more brown tone, this one's a little bit more green, but I feel like we could have maybe taken this one a little bit lighter and then lightened up one of these. But that's just kind of me being nitpicky because I'm doing a ranking and I have to be, but this is very beautiful and I do love it. I love the theming, I love the attention to detail. These are favorites. Number 12 is going to the Halloween palette. This is the other one that Betty Jean did in collaboration with Shroud Cosmetics, and this one is my favorite of the two. I love the oranges in here. I think they are absolutely beautiful. This shade right here, Woodsboro, looks so beautiful all over the lid. I love Black Flame Candle as well. It's a really pretty black-based purple shade that has a lot of shift to it. This one is my favorite of the two. I will say I do wish that we had a little bit more color variance between these two right here, but regardless of that, I can still create one cohesive look with this. I don't need to pull anything else in, and I just love the theming and the colors behind this one, but I love everything else ahead of this one just a little bit more, and that's going to be the on-running theme with the rest of these palettes. Number 11 is going to the Little Ghost palette from Odin's Eye in collaboration with Angelica Nyqvist. I do love the color story in here. I think this is beautiful. I love the purples and the yellows. These blues over here are absolutely stunning. I love the shimmers in here. I don't have any issues with hard panning or anything like that when it comes to my Odin's Eye palettes. Maybe they're not old enough yet, but I just kind of want to put that out there because I know a lot of people talk about how they get hard panning and things like that, but like I said, I haven't. I do think this is a beautiful color story. I like what she did with the theming here. I definitely see her vision and where she was going with it, but once again, the other ones ahead of this I like just a little bit more. All right, so we are down to our top 10, and these are my absolute favorites. I love every single one of these palettes. They could be rearranged at any moment, but as of now, in this moment, this is where they're going to stand. So coming in at number 10 are going to be the Scooby-Doo palettes from Glamlite. We have the Retro Raggy and the Creeps and Crawls palettes. These are absolutely beautiful. These were actually the first Glamlite palettes I ever purchased from the brand, and I absolutely love them. The quality in here is fantastic. This really kind of got me hooked. So I was really confused whenever I noticed that the brand kind of goes up and down with the quality in their palettes, but these are some of the best quality that they have. Now again, if I had to rank these separately, my least favorite of the two, which might surprise you, is going to be the Creeps and Crawls palette, and that is because once again, this one leans very, very dark. I can get one cohesive look out of this, but I feel like I need to pull in just something a little bit lighter than this one over here, and I wish I had a little bit more variety in here. I love me a purple, we all know that, but the other one I just love a little bit more, and that is going to be the Retro Raggy palette, and I feel like a lot of people love this one. This one just screams a little bit more spooky season to me. I love the tones in here. This blue is absolutely beautiful. I love kind of this pea green shade in here as well. Very beautiful. These are actually beautiful companion palettes to one another. So personally for me, whenever I pull them out, I like to mix and match and create a look that way. But individually, Retro Raggy is going to be my favorite and Creeps and Crawls is going to be my second favorite. Number 9 is going to our first Halloween release of the year, and that was the Unearthly Night Terror Mini Mystery Box, and this is the Night Terror palette that came in that one. Now unfortunately you cannot purchase this one alone, you have to get it in the box, and that came with a lip gloss and a highlighter, I believe is what it is. It is a more affordable box, and for me it is 100% worth it because I love the color story in here, I love the quality in here, I love that it is a matte heavy palette with 3 absolutely beautiful shimmers. I've really enjoyed the looks that I have created with this one. Again, it just comes down to the palettes ahead of this one I like a little bit more, but this is a very beautiful palette. I've had a lot of fun creating it, and I love that Unearthly gave us a smaller 9-pan palette. Number 8 is going to the Recently De-Influenced palette from Bella Beauty Bar. Now listen, this palette is absolutely gorgeous. The quality in here is spectacular. I love the shimmers in here. I love the tones in here. I do personally think this could have been curated down just a little bit. I feel like we maybe didn't need both of these oranges and both of these shades right here. They are very different on the lid, but when I'm going in to make looks, I don't necessarily need both of the shades, but the shimmers in here are absolutely beautiful. I love how we had this pop of dark green over here, but I'm gonna be honest, that kind of throws me off a little bit when it comes to color stories and what to do with this palette, just because I feel like that green kind of clashes with everything going on over here, but it is still a very pretty palette. The quality is fantastic. It's just not an absolute favorite out of all the ones that Bella Beauty Bar has done to date. Number 7 is going to the Graveyard Smash palette from Wicked Widow Beauty, and this is the cutest little 8-pan palette you've ever seen. I love the color story in here. This green shade right here is so beautiful on the lid, and you can really just kind of fluff it out and soften it up a little bit, and it goes on absolutely beautiful. I love the color selection in here. It is a little bit different, and when I first looked at it, I was like, oh, I don't need that color story. It's weird, but I picked it up because I really wanted this shade and this shade right here, plus I love this orange. And once I got into it and started creating looks, I found a lot of fun to be had in this palette. The looks are beautiful. This shade is absolutely beautiful. It's very transformative. This green one up here is beautiful as well. I do feel like I kind of could have done without this kind of coppery brown shimmer shade over here, but it does make some beautiful looks, especially when you pair it with this shade or this shade right here. I do really love this palette. It is an 8 pan, but she is small and mighty. Coming in at number 6, we had the Castle of Horrors palette from Ladybug Glow in collaboration with Blairdalemua, and I love this palette. I love the color story. I love the theming. I think it is absolutely beautiful. The quality in here is fantastic. I miss Ladybug Glow so much, and she knows that I miss the brand so much. I think a lot of us do, but this color story is absolutely beautiful. We do have a silver in here, which isn't my absolute favorite, but I will say paired with this navy blue and this blurple shade in the middle, absolutely beautiful. I do really appreciate the silver in this palette, but the purples in here are so good as well. This really pretty plummy purple shade over here, it looks so beautiful on the eye, and then pair it with this really pretty, more like textured flaky purple over here. Absolutely stunning. Favorite palette of mine, not just for spooky season, but purples in general, and I love this one. At number 5, we have the Ghost Town USA palette from Nomad Cosmetics. This was last year's spooky season release, and I love this palette. This is hands down one of my absolute favorites from the brand. The matte formula in here is incredible, but the shimmers are so intense and beautiful on the lid. I love the color selection here. I love that we have all these cool tone mattes, but then she threw in like a purple, we've got some greens, we've got this really pretty champagne over here, and then these copper shades are absolutely beautiful. I love the variety in here. I love the depth in here. It goes from light to really dark. This is an excellent palette, and in fact, while I'm filming right now, we are supposed to be starting the guest game for the next upcoming spooky themed palette, and I cannot wait to see what that is. I haven't even checked to see if the game has started yet because it is still very early in the morning, but I love their spooky themed palettes, and I'm excited to see what their next one's gonna be. At the number 4 spot, we have the Gothic palette from Cosmic Beauty. Now this is a 12 pan palette from the brand, and so far this is the only one we have seen. It really makes me wonder if we have more coming up in the future, but I love this one. I don't know what I was expecting to see on the inside when they first sneak peeked the cover of it, but it definitely was not a purple palette, but I absolutely love it. The mix of warm tones and cool tones in here is perfection. This bubblegum pink shade over here is so intense and absolutely beautiful on the lid. I love the shimmers in here. We have a really pretty black sequin shade over here with like purple sparkle in here, and this white shade right here, this sort of iridescent ethereal topper shade, is so incredibly beautiful on the lid. This is not only a favorite spooky season palette in my collection, but once again, it's another favorite purple palette in my collection. Alright, so top 3 palettes. This was very hard. These 3 absolutely 100% could be rearranged at any time, especially number 3 and number 1, because they are favorites of mine in my collection. But coming in at number 3 is going to be the Basic Witch palette from Bella Beauty Bar. This was one of 2 that they released last year for spooky season, and this one was the favorite of the 2. The Recently De-Influenced was the other one, but this one, this is the color story that I gravitate towards. I love the purples in here, this pop of orange, this pop of green. This color story makes a little bit more sense to me than the other one does. While that one is still very beautiful, I just like this one so much more. I love the purples and the pinks. This shade down here, which is called Hocus Pocus, is so stunning and beautiful on the lid. It is reflective, it is flippy. I love this palette so much. I did recently use this one in like a get ready with me using my go-to makeup and things like that, and I created a look with it and I loved it, and I actually got a ton of compliments from a lot of people when I was out in public with it. But this is a beautiful palette. I'm excited to pull it back out and play with it some more. Coming in at number 2, we have the Trick or Treat palette from Odin's Eye in collaboration with Angelica Nyqvist. This is the counterpart to the Little Ghost palette. The two of them launched together last year for Halloween, and this one is the favorite of the two for me because this is exactly what I think of when I think of a Halloween color story. It's got the reds, it's got the greens, it's got the yellows, this really pretty dark brown up here that almost looks black. You can use that to deepen up anything in here. This is a very fall palette as well. I love the color story in here. I love the quality in here, the theming, all of it. This green shade down here called Crypt Keeper is one of my favorites in this palette, as well as this gold shade up here. Absolutely beautiful. She nailed it with this collection, but this color story in particular. All right, so that brings us to our number 1 palette, and I'm sure if you have been following along and you have watched any of my videos here on my channel, you know exactly what number 1 is going to be. It's going to come as no surprise to anybody, and that is going to be the Strange and Unusual palette from Bella Beauty Bar. This was my first purchase from the brand, and I absolutely love it. I bought it because it's a Beetlejuice themed palette. I knew nothing of the brand. I didn't really care at that time. I loved the color story. I love the theming, and this palette captured my heart immediately. It is still probably my absolute favorite from the brand. This is the original formula that the palette launched in. I haven't gotten the new one. I know that they've updated it with their better formula. Maybe eventually I will, but I don't have any issues with the quality in this palette, so I haven't seen a reason to do so. But I love the color story in here. This neon green up here, perfection. I love it. I love the shimmers in here. This one right here, which is called Witch Doctor, is one of my favorites in the palette. The purples are beautiful. I do feel like we have a little bit of color overlap with the purple shimmers in here, but I love purple, so I'm not going to complain. This bright red over here is absolutely beautiful as well. I love that we have a white to kind of lighten things up a little bit, and we do have this really pretty sequin shade down here. It's like a black with green sparkle in it. I love this palette. It's fun. It's a little bit on the chaotic side, but it is definitely on theme, and it is definitely on point, and it is my absolute favorite spooky theme palette. All right, y'all, so that is going to complete this video. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Let me know all of your thoughts down below. Do you have any of these palettes in your collection? How would you have ranked these? What is your favorite spooky season palette? And if you're not a fan of spooky season, what is your favorite fall palette? I want to know it all. Let's have that conversation. Light up that comment section. And as usual, I want to thank you all so much for watching my video and spending your time with me. It truly does mean so much to me. And if you like this video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up before you leave. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click on that notification bell so that you can be notified of all my future posts here on my channel. I do post quite a few videos every single week, and I wouldn't want you to miss one. But until my next video, have a good one. Bye.